Hey guys, you guys saw that I was going to Seller Summit 2024. I'm back. As promised, here's my review. The part that makes this conference so enjoyable to me is the mastermind feature. They have 3 different masterminds that you can attend based on your level of revenue. Also, within your certain field of e-commerce, the fields definitely overlap, and the organizers know that. They know who they put in the same room together with a certain leader, and they know how to make sure that certain people don't clash, certain competitors aren't at their throats. Also, making sure that certain experts are there to advise certain people who need that strength. Effort goes into it. It's not randomized, and it's not low effort. Plenty of time and effort go into it. How do I know? I spoke with one of the organizers with a vague idea of somebody in my mastermind. They got it. Fantastic work. Imagine, every business has its strengths and weaknesses. You go around the table thinking, how can I help this person using my strength? How can everybody here help me with my weakness? I don't think any of us have the privilege of having that kind of roundtable with that kind of qualified audience to bounce an idea off of. Day 2, main day of the conference, you'll hear me recurring on this theme, actionable insights. Bernie Thompson started it off. PPC Ninja had a fantastic showing between him and Ritu, who actually presented on the second day. So let me read off the topic of Bernie's talk to you. How to compete on Amazon versus a Chinese brand when you source from China yourself. Rising practice of Chinese factories, Chinese brands selling things that you probably molded yourself. Think of it. You're going up against a government that subsidizes the practice and people with much lower labor costs than you, and a de minimis rule that's still in effect. I'm not giving the content away for free, but people in my network, wouldn't you want to attend a lecture like that? Isn't that hyper relevant to the times we're living in and the practice of our business? All talks were tactical, but Bernie's was technical and actionable more than the other. Bernie showed different ways how to leverage different levers so that we can execute a task that used to require counsel on our own now. And then there was a lecture by Kristen Levine. I do have to preface everything by saying I am a student of Stephen Tony. I dare to say I'm a friend. Kristen is a classmate. Kristen does PR and is a journalist herself. I never thought of the role of PR in my business. PR to an Amazon listing on launch can boost you organically, help your customer acquisition. The right PR can take your brand from a startup to an enterprise level. These were ideas I was not thinking about. Again, the holistic view of the organizers of this conference, Steve and Tony, know that e-commerce is not only on Amazon and has plenty to do with content. While the areas definitely overlap, this is not a Prosper kind of conference. This is not an ASGTG. This is a holistic e-commerce conference, which I think primarily as an Amazon seller, we have to be familiar with. It's ideas like this where Kristen comes in and shows us how PR can be leveraged in an e-commerce space that I wasn't thinking about that till now. But the doors it can unlock, I've been thinking about for the past 2 weeks since I've been there. Ultimately, in the Q&A session, I asked, how high on the priority list should this be for a startup brand? I'll leave that up to you guys, depending on what PR could do for you, the niche you serve, and who you can target given the way your business is run. Then there was Mina Elias of Trivia. The Amazon Trinity, he called it. Mina didn't give us high-level knowledge where he said, just make sure you come and hire us outside. He gave us the evolution of how his strategies evolved and changed. Mina, you go back to how we used to leverage things like the 2-step URL. He went through the journey of what he uses now. He went through the journey of, you can't ask for positive reviews, but what his strategy is now. He went through the Search Query Performance Report, a relatively new feature and product drop from Amazon to us sellers and brand owners. The insights and golden nuggets we can find in a seemingly bland spreadsheet. He told us the red flags to look for, or very big opportunity windows to take advantage of. There was then Angela Wright, which was a mind-blowing presentation. Leveraging organic Instagram to increase your e-commerce. Again, not giving it away, but there was an algorithm change that was public, and she presented on leveraging for us e-commerce brands to get free organic traffic, higher reach, higher engagement, higher revenue. It wasn't rocket science. The implementation steps were very simple. And to think that all of it is done free, that was definitely a gem. And then there was Spencer Hawes, SEO legend. Spencer leveraged SEO and built multiple sites, multiple businesses, and frankly, mastered the art of SEO. When I say this conference is holistic in content, e-commerce, and Amazon, that's part of the beauty. Most sales start out as an Amazon search online. Websites have to have some source of traffic being driven to it. That's what content and SEO are. All of it is packed into a conference like this. Spencer goes into different construction of a website, how to highlight certain aspects to rank for a certain word, what ranking for a certain word means, and different levers you can pull to emphasize different traffic sources. It was so nice to hear from a legend like that. Next day, Tiffany goes into the magic she's hitting with TikTok shops. I am pretty skeptical of TikTok, but I think we're all keeping an eye on the role of TikTok, especially TikTok shops. That's where our dollars go, and potentially our business. Only you guys know if you have the market or the creative marketing to put up with TikTok, the creative assets that requires, and also the logistical aspect. We learned it was very demanding logistically. I sort of knew that, but she went into a lot more detail I can ever profess. But you guys only know if you're built for it. Personally, I think the future of TikTok is uncertain. Do I think it's going anywhere? No. Do I think changes are happening? I think that's inevitable. But definitely something you should look into, given the uniqueness and relevance of your own business. And then the founder, Steve Chu, he presented on Facebook. In the e-commerce world at large, Meta is functioning a lot like Amazon is functioning for primarily Amazon sellers. E-commerce brands rely on Meta almost entirely for customer acquisition. Because they rely on Meta for customer acquisition in such great numbers, they're subject to Meta's reach and Meta's mercy. So that's a particular pain point of e-commerce brands at large. And what Steve presented on was how to leverage whatever controls they give you for the maximum output on the other end. Relatively simple. Not exactly rocket science, but very dangerous. If you don't know what you're doing, that's already a red flag, and it can very well be a money pit that you just throw money down. Might as well burn it. So if you're going to do it, he presented a pretty simple way of doing it right. I referenced this earlier. It was Ritu Jabba, who had a killer presentation on AI. Not only did she present on what AI could do, but what it can do for e-commerce and what it can do for Amazon businesses. Further than that, she presented on how it can help us in our everyday life. Particularly, she hit on the idea of the second brain. We can have a bunch of unorganized ideas in our brain of different content, presentations, even conversations we've had recently. If we put that all into an AI GPT, probe it for different ideas whenever we need to extract those ideas, that's our second brain. Talk about a brain dump. Most of the tools she presented were actually free, but an overall efficiency machine when it comes to different ways to live your life with AI being the center of it. AI won't replace us, but people who know how to leverage it, like Ritu, might. Last but not least, there was Brandon Young. I'm pretty sure people here know what Data Dive is about. Data Dive is an amazing software that plugs in different rankings and different product opportunities for certain keywords. If you need any clearer idea of what they do, I highly suggest you go ahead and see their content, which there's plenty of out. But for us, what Brandon does is walks us through just a few different ways to leverage his software along with, let's say, Midjourney. When he couldn't come up with a product with certain features, he asked Midjourney to try and picture it out, put it together. Who would have thought an idea like that? But one question I actually got to ask him was, what does he think of the future of Cosmo and Rufus? Kevin King's newsletter keeps on mentioning how the shift of AI and AI search is now hitting Amazon. Vanessa Hong actually spoke with Norm Farrar in a podcast saying how the AI probed the main image of a product detail page and recategorized a certain product to, again, rejigger the rankings and rejigger the commission rates of that product. Really cool stuff, but shifting away from the model we know, Jungle Scout, Helium 10, and Data Dive, using words and the definition of those words. Product detail pages now have to go into meaning and different functions of the product, because if you ask Rufus how is this problem going to be fixed with the product? The product detail page better answer how it solves a customer frustration. Personally, I think these three companies, Helium 10, Data Dive, Jungle Scout, are going to have to pivot in some fashion. But in my opinion, Brendan rightly said, there's a long runway until that pivot needs to be made. Overall, Steve and Tony do a fantastic job running this conference. And the best part about it is it's driven on value and action-driven insights. As a whole, if you couldn't tell, this is one of my favorite conferences to attend. It's one I actually enjoy traveling to. Being in New York City, I don't really travel to many of them, but this makes me excited to pick up and go. The reason is because it's a small conference, 200, 250 people max. I got into the elevator the first day and already knew the names of people in that elevator. We had a relationship that we just built off of the year prior. The people you see on day 1, you see on day 2 and 3. So it's familiar faces, familiar conversations, familiar topics, and familiar experiences. People from diverse backgrounds, be it professional or personal. The Seller Summit is unlike any other conference in that other conferences, some conferences that I've made public before, are treated just as an ATM machine. Give high-level information to sellers, solicit them to hire agencies, and not give them any actionable insights so that they can actually implement on their own. This is the antithesis. Here, the objective is give sellers actionable insights, allow them to implement on their own, and we're not a moneymaker. We're capping it off at a small size. We're not going to be one of those conferences where there are too many. But we're going to keep it at a place where it's meaningful. Steve and Tony, thank you. Great job. And I'm hoping this extends beyond the community. And other organizers of conferences, perhaps you can take something away from this, and that the value set and the practices that they profess can actually proliferate into your conferences. I'll see you at the next one.